Morning. All right, Anthony, why don't you start us off?
What's going on? What's going on, guys? Anthony Angelillo, branch manager over here at Paramount Residential Mortgage Group, CEO, founder of Tag Team Nation. Been doing this business now for about 20 years, and I am looking forward to speaking with Gigi. This day, I'm blessed. It's just been the day of hell, and there's a lot of crap that has gone down. So we're talking about stress, and holy shit, there's been a lot of stress. I'm flush white. But dude, let's roll, man. Like, let's go. I'm pumped for this episode. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to, it's been too long. I feel like it's been a year since we had this show. And thank you for all the guest speakers that are attending and watching this live, in the future.
Awesome. Hi, guys. Melinda Grimaldi, real estate and title attorney, co-host for Damage Control, episode 60. So exciting that we made it this far. We took a little hiatus for Anthony and I to recover from some health situations, but we are back and at it full swing. So and excited to be back with our next episode with Gigi, who we have lots of mutual friends, and you're always saying something so on point. So I wanted you to share your nuggets with our community. So Gigi, please introduce yourself, tell everyone what you do, and we'll talk about stress and how it controls our success if we don't manage it properly.
That is so true. Well, firstly, thank you guys so much for having me here. It is an absolute pleasure to be able to share this little piece of my morning with everyone who is watching right now. Maybe you're watching in the evening if you're catching the replay. I'm Gigi Diaz. I am an iHeartRadio personality on multiple stations across the country. I am also an entrepreneur. I've been an entrepreneur for the past 17 or so years of my life, running multiple businesses. And most recently, I became certified as a life coach focusing on mindset, because my desire to accomplish, my drive, right? Like that thing where you're like, I want to take over the world, right? Like my determination to do all the things and to be successful is what drove me into a hospital. And I literally worked myself sick to the point where I thought I was doing all of the things. And I was. I had a very successful television career working as a sports reporter. I had a very successful radio career where I was doing mornings, which means you wake up at approximately 3:45, 3:50 to be able to make it to your first break, right? Like at 5:36. And then I was also running my business, my dance studio, which I opened back in 2003. And I decided that was the perfect time to go for my master's degree, right? In fact, it was not. It was the dumbest thing.
Right.
And so, not the master's degree. The master's degree was great, right? I'm a nerd at heart. I'm probably gonna end up going back to school again at some point. But the overload, right? And it was all because I was following somebody else's definition of success, everyone else's definition of success, right? So my parents, I was born in Cuba. So as an immigrant, you come to this country and your parents were like, you got to do all the things, you got to get your degree, you have to Like, we didn't leave everything behind for you to come here and just sit on your butt and do nothing. So I had that, right? So I wanted to get all the degrees. And then I've always had an entrepreneurial heart, right? And so has my mom and my dad. So I saw that and I was like, I could do that too. So I opened a business, just doing all the things. And when I found myself sitting in that hospital, I realized my very happy clients from my dance studio can't do anything for me right now. The great ratings that I had in my radio show couldn't do anything for me. The viewers and the people that I was working with in sports couldn't do anything for me. And in that moment, I thought to myself, why the hell am I doing any of this shit anyway? Like, why am I doing this? How did I end up in here with an IV, not knowing what the hell is going on? Right. And I realized it was because I was following everyone else's definition of success. And that was the moment when I said something's got to give. Right. And that was when I shifted the way I work, why I work, and why I do what I do. Right. And I learned not just through that particularly scary experience, but through getting my own coaching, through learning and reading, through looking inward and challenging everything and everyone that was around me, feeding me information and things, that I realized this is one life that you have, and it is your responsibility to create your own customized blueprint for your success, not to follow what everybody else is telling you. You can gain nuggets of information and see what suits you from everything that everybody else is doing and from everything that everybody else is saying, because it does work for some people in different ways, but you are unlike anyone else. And so I started doing that work. I started doing the work of creating my own blueprints. And when I succeeded at being able to run now 2 businesses, then it was 1, now 2 businesses, with a continuously successful career in broadcast, creating boundaries, making space for myself, and then living a happy life where I'm done by like 4 o'clock on a good day, right? I can choose to work till 11 if I want to, but that's not the goal, right? And so when I learned to do that, I thought to myself, there have to be other people out there, women particularly is who I focus on most, but other people who are hustling themselves to death, right? Like who are hustling themselves into stress instead of success. And that's not the goal, right? And that's when I opened Seizing Happy, which is my coaching organization. I got certified as a coach. I learned how to do it correctly. And it's been such a pleasure to teach the clients that I work with how to achieve their definition of success with less stress, because they become the people in charge of their life. Not all the things, but themselves. They get the reins of their life and they decide what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. And that is, in a nutshell, where I am right now. And it is so much fun. It's so much fun to see people come to me flustered and overwhelmed and walking away like they are the damn CEO of their life. It's my favorite thing. I love it.
That's so amazing. You know, real estate is probably one of the most stressful, at least in this current climate, one of the most stressful industries because of how things are going down. So even if you weren't that stressed out before, you're probably pretty stressed out right now because things aren't how they used to be. And you know, things are going to change coming up soon, probably. So we got to just always be ready to pivot. And that could be very overwhelming for a lot of people. I know for myself too, sometimes thinking about it. It definitely is. On top of running the business, a team and family and all that. So I've had my moments of, what am I doing this for? So I could totally relate. Didn't go to the hospital, didn't get to the hospital, but definitely was feeling extremely overwhelmed. So and I think a lot of people really can relate to that. That's why I thought this was a really good topic to discuss, because I think Anthony can agree. We see agents, the majority of our viewers are real estate agents, and we see them coming, to us in a frenzy and a panic almost every day for different reasons. And really, like, it's almost like a Chicken Little thing. We joke about it, but it's like the sky is falling every day. And so Anthony and I are all constantly trying to not digest that sky is falling into our own personal lives and businesses, because that is really, imagine having a bunch of Chicken Littles, and not every agent is like that, of course, but imagine having a bunch of Chicken Littles coming to you and stressing you out. So like everyone's telling you the sky is falling. I'm like, shit, is the sky really falling? Like I have to like check myself too sometimes, and so where does one start, in the whole process of not letting the stress get to you? I know that's probably a very loaded question, but like, where do we start when we feel overwhelmed?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So you mentioned a lot of things that are really, really important, right? And the first place to start is within, right? So it's easy to say that is stressing me, or that goal is stressing me, that person is stressing me, that thing is stressing me, but none of those things are stressing you. It is your reaction to those things that is causing you stress. And so the first thing to do is you need to look within and say, what am I lacking right now? And answer it truthfully, because everyone's either going to say time or money, and that's not it. What am I lacking right now that is making me react to these people and these things in this way, right? A lot of the time, especially in industries like real estate, a lot of the time for entrepreneurs as well, people who manage big teams, their answer is time. I don't have time. That's why I'm stressed out, because so-and-so is here late, and because so-and-so is doing this, and because this other paperwork didn't go through. It's not that. Usually when people look inward and you ask yourself, what am I lacking that is making me react to these triggers with stress? And you say time, it's usually not time, it's usually organization. You're lacking organization. You're lacking a system. You are lacking a solid foundation. It's not time. I have the same 24 hours in a day than anyone watching this, right? And so what that means is if you're not managing your time and you're just trying to hit all the balls that are coming your way all at the same time, eventually they're going to start flying past your nose. You can't get to them all at once, right? And so the first place to start is look inward and say, what am I lacking right now that is making me react instead of respond, right? That's the first and most important step because it starts with you. The second step that I would highly recommend is learn the difference between urgent and really freaking important. Right?
Urgent, what? Important?
Really freaking important. Yeah, because if I say important, then they're a lot of the time I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and they're like, well, everything is important. No, not everything is important, right? Let's go with really, really important. Whatever, important or urgent, right? We tend to put ourselves in a constant state of fight or flight, thinking everything is urgent. All the clients, everything has to be done right now, right away, right? And it doesn't, right? And so learn the difference between urgent, which means if it does not get done in the next hour, the shit hits the fan and everything falls through. That's urgent. Really important is you got to get the paperwork through, you got to get the appraisal done, you got to get all these things. It doesn't have to get done in the next hour, right? So when you learn to categorize what is urgent and what is really important, you take control of the items that you're giving your attention to and the way in which you're doing it. Say again.
So this is, you mentioned, whether you know it or not, in the beginning, I'm taking notes. I'm not texting here, just so you know. I'm a note taker. And I never was a note taker. But see, I adapted in the situation, said I better take notes to get organized. You mentioned control. And that's what bothers me as an entrepreneur. How do I control the situation that I know is perfect? Am I a perfectionist? Okay, maybe I am. But I know Melinda's title process is perfect. That's why I like using her. That is a control aspect of being an entrepreneur. I think you're right. I think the organization aspect of a lot of agents, they're flustered because of the lack of organization from the beginning or lack of milestone communication on what's really going on in the industry. Same with loan officers too. Not to sit here and undermine just real estate agents. Same thing with any entrepreneur. I think it's the organization. You're spot on. Continue, but amazing content, man.
Also,
yeah,
when you hit that, it really made a difference for me too. When I really started implementing systems to organize my business in a way that even though I can't control everything, but it allows me to control what I can in a more organized fashion. It was a game changer. It allowed me to scale. It allowed me to do more business. It allowed me to build a reputation of being able to deliver. Right. Yeah. So, and that's definitely, you can't, maybe you can eyeball one deal, right? Or keep it all, or have a couple post-its for a few deals. But if you're like for us that we're doing 40 deals a month, that is too much for a piece of paper, right? You need to create the systems to manage that. And so that for sure rings home for me. And then how you designate things, right? How you categorize, how you describe things. One person told me, I'm going to stop saying I don't have enough time. Because even just that, right? Just saying that, and I still say it sometimes, but I try not to. I don't have enough time will change the way you look at your day, right? And it will start the feeling of anxiousness from the get-go. So that's super important to how you designate. And then you said urgent and very important. There's also the emergency, right? The reality is in real estate, there's no such thing as emergencies. No one's dying. Even if someone's dying, there's nothing we could do about it, right?
You can't solve it. You gotta call 911.
Right.
Even if it's a shitstorm file that I'm salvaging, everyone's like, oh, we're never going to get it done. You get the listing agent on the phone. We'll talk to the seller. We'll get an extension. It happens every time, and it works.
But that's not an emergency
at all.
That's just an urgent situation, right? So by describing it as urgent, first of all, there's no such thing as emergency in real estate. Second of all, urgent things, like you said, it's just to help you prioritize, because everything really is important at the end of the day, in closing a deal, right? So it's just pulling out those things like what is urgent today to move the needle for tomorrow so that we stay on track, right? And having those workflows built out so you can look at multiple files at once. So we digress, but Gigi, please.
No, it's good. Listen, these are concepts that are applied that I use in my coaching for entrepreneurs in every space, and they apply across the board. So I love that you can narrow it down more specifically to what real estate needs to take away from these points, but it's across the board no matter what you do. And something that you mentioned, Anthony, that is also really important is, and I want to go back to it because it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs do struggle with, and that is the concept of control, right? The only thing that you can control is yourself.
Yeah.
So assuming or believing that you can control your business, or that you can control the outcome of a sale, or that you can control the client, or that you can control the outcome of anything is already setting yourself up for failure. Because those
you want to hear
can
something
control.
funny? Everyone's going to laugh. You're going to think it's a little bit crazy. AT&T went out. I have 2 internets. So I did that purposely because they're all on different grids. There's one on a different grid. The other one's on a different grid. I did it just in case if there was a power outage or if something happened. So I would always have internet. Both went out. There's both the power outage, I guess, in Miami Shores. Shit happens. And now I'm here in my lobby. So the control aspect is not 100%, man,
But that's when it goes back to you. Now you are
Yes.
the only thing you can control. You can go to a coffee shop and finish your work at a coffee shop. You can call a friend and say, yo, can I come over and sit quietly in your dining room? My Wi-Fi's down and I got to do things. Or you can freak out, start getting angry, get aggravated, spend 35 minutes complaining, bitching and moaning because the light went out, because now there's an outage, and that's 30 minutes of your day that you just pissed yourself off.
Yeah. The
Right?
elevator
And
stopping at every floor didn't help either.
Oh, I bet. But this is that concept where entrepreneurs, a lot of the time, we want to have our hands on the whole thing at once, right?
Yeah.
And that does not empower you. It does not empower your team. And it definitely does not accomplish what you want. It doesn't guarantee success. If anything, it guarantees something's going to fall out of your hands if you can't hold on to all the balls at once. Right? You've got to have a system where you can throw it and get it back, and throw it and get it back, and throw it and get it back. Whether you're doing that by throwing it to a team member, getting it back to approve it, throwing it back to a client, getting it back to approve it, or you're doing that by yourself. So there's a lot of solopreneurs out there. And that means grab this ball, work with it, put it down. Grab this one, work with it, put it down. And that leads me to my third tip that I wanted to bring to you today. And then we can dive into questions or anything else. And that third tip is to make sure that you do not have a to-do list. That shit does not work. I don't care what anybody tells you, to-do lists don't work. And the reason is because you are always going to have something else on the list. And if you don't know how to utilize tip number 2, which is know the difference between urgent and important, you're just going to want to tackle that list all at the same time. And all you're going to do is move the needle a little bit in each thing at a time. And everything is going to end up undone. Or you're going to accomplish one thing.
Let me interject on that, because that's awesome. So you're saying, Melinda and I have a Trello board. And I also have a Trello board too. And I've got a lot of tasks on there. And it keeps adding to that task. And we're a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of tasks, I should say. You're saying get rid of the tasks, or just don't mind all of the tasks, because there's always going to be a project to do.
I don't think that's what she's saying. I think it's a little different.
Elaborate on that,
Gigi.
Of course, I'm going to. I promise. I'll never throw something at you without explaining what it is. So do not have a to-do list, because it doesn't work, because there's always going to be something added onto it. What you need to have instead is you need to have blocks of work in your day. Okay? So here's the way that looks. Instead of one long list of everything that needs to get done, okay, you are going to have 3 things when you wake up in the morning that are the absolute must happen today, because if it doesn't happen today, the shit hits the fan. There's only 3. right? Since we're not saving lives, curing cancer, or doing anything super dire, 3 is enough, right? So those 3 things get done immediately at the start of your day. Those are your must get done. And then, right, those are your urgent things. This has to happen now, right? And then you are going to have blocks of your day. This block of my day from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. is where I am going to take a look at all of my contracts, do whatever needs to get done for each of those contracts. That's all I'm going to do. I am not taking calls. I am not taking clients. I am not looking at appraisals. I'm not looking at anything else. It's that one block. After that block, you're going to have a 10-minute block where you're going to get up, walk around, look at a tree, check your text, talk to your friends, 10 minutes. Then you're going to have another block where you're going to follow up with whatever else needs to be followed up with. So for example, for me, I have my first block is radio. I have to be on air. That is the only thing I do. I don't do anything else. My second block is my short break. I eat lunch afterwards. I'm not a big breakfast person. My third block is all my podcasting and interviews. That's all I do. I put those together because I don't do either of those things every single day. But I'm either podcasting something or doing an interview or preparing for a podcast or preparing for an interview in that last block. You have your 10-minute break, and then you're going to have your follow-up with my previous block. What things were left undone in these blocks, these 2 or 3 blocks, however you're splitting up your day, that you need to give the last hour of your day to? Follow up with that. If it can be handled, handle it. If it cannot be handled, you're going to decide, is this urgent that it needs to become part of my top 3 tomorrow? Or is this really important that needs to be put back in its own block tomorrow at 9 a.m. again, because we do this particular thing in the 9 a.m. block every single day. And then what happens is, I know a lot of the time, people are going to be like, oh, but things come up. You know, things come up all the time and people call me and they do this and they do that. Okay, again, we go back to, you can't control what comes up, but you can control yourself. You can control your day. When something comes up, when Anthony calls you freaking out because XYZ, Melinda, you have the control of saying, Anthony, I've made a note of that. It is not urgent. So I'm going to either handle it at the end of my day when, you know, or what in whichever block it belongs, or I'm going to make sure it gets done first thing tomorrow inside that block. Or this is urgent. This must get done in 1 hour. That's different. If it must get done within that 1 hour.
I was just going to say that. What if it overlaps, Gigi? What if something overlaps and you break the time block in?
That's fine if it's urgent. And how you determine urgent, because it can get handled in 1 hour, whatever it is. If it's something that you're going to be tossing back and forth that could take 2 hours, 3 hours, or a day, then you postpone it to where it belongs in your block of time.
Yeah.
If it's urgent, it means you need to handle it within the hour, or else shit's going to hit the fan. If something urgent comes up, of course you pause whatever you have going on that can wait. You handle the urgent thing and you let it go. Now it's done. Now it's not going to come back.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's urgent.
So that right there, you should say that again to everybody. And I think everyone fails at this, including myself. And I just broke this habit, I want to say maybe 6 months ago. Literally 6 months ago. The follow-up, I think people get so obsessed of the follow-up or that one deal or that second deal that the entire day is spent on that one task. And now you've lost 24 hours on one deal, obsessive on this one deal, and you haven't time blocked, you haven't time management. And I'm doing projects now and we're launching, and DC's also with Melinda, we're doing launching. The bottom line is that needs to be prioritized, right? And it's not going to happen overnight, but this is great stuff, man. This is great stuff.
So I have a time blocking system.
Yeah.
The reality is that sometimes I got to move the blocks because some days I don't have the capacity to spend an hour on admin and doing my team meeting with my bookkeeper. I'll push it to the next day, but the blocks always got to get done within the week, right? So that's how I try to look at it. There's the ideal week, and then there's some times that we got to move the blocks. Certain things for me that are non-negotiable are my morning team meetings. That's always got to happen. And like that's guaranteed. So I don't move that. It might go a half an hour earlier, half an hour later, depending on things. But everything else, really, we have a business where we're dealing and interacting with a lot of different players for one transaction. So you need to be ready for the flexibility, I think is important too. You need to, like, you don't expect the worst, but you need to be ready for things to be moving around because of the nature of the business.
But that's important what you just said. You need to be ready to be flexible, but it's important to distinguish between being flexible and being tossed around by the things that come up. Being flexible means you're still in control of what you're doing and when you're doing it. You're not just running to the next fire all the time. When you're just running to put out the next fire all the time, you are not flexible. You're just running around exhausting yourself, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is, of course, a flexibility, which is something that I find so fascinating about the real estate business, that it is, you have your entire day is yours. You can be flexible. You can do whatever you want all day, anytime, right? But that's where it's really important to have the control of your time, right? To be flexible if something comes up that is urgent, of course, everything must pause. So this is why it's important to know the difference between important and urgent, right? Everything can pause if this needs to be handled within an hour, right? Or else a deal is going to fall through or something's going to happen. 1 hour, right? But if you have to adjust, if you get, I wouldn't be able to give you a specific example, but like if you get something that must happen now and you've got to move a block down, you can do that. Just make sure that you are not moving a block of work down for something that is just really important.
And another
that's not
thing,
urgent.
Or getting rid of a block. Like there's certain blocks that agents must do, and that is prospecting and making calls. If you delete that block every day to react to your deals that are under contract, you will dry up your pipeline. And when you do that, you will have that roller coaster. You know when you're on a real roller coaster and you're going down. That's such a like for me. I used to love roller coasters. I hate them now. But that feeling of going down is a terrible feeling for me now in my stomach, literally and figuratively, right? So I always said I have to always keep prospecting to make sure my pipeline is full. Same thing for the agents. You don't want to have that feeling of like, oh no, this is closed and I have nothing left to do. That's because you stop prospecting. And it's a entrepreneurial like shit show that happens all the time because you like prospect, then you get really busy and you're so busy, you stop prospecting, whatever business you're in. And then you just, it turns into that vicious cycle of instability, which we all can't stand. Right. So making sure if you have to move your block to the afternoon to make calls, because you have to react to, your deal's urgent matters, then do that. But you always got to keep those 2 hours of prospecting one way or another somewhere in your day. So
yeah, I agree. And something else that I think is really important is, which a lot of the time, no matter what industry we're in, we forget to do, is it's just as important to put in a block for nothingness. And that triggers people. Like I know when I tell a lot of my clients, like, which part of your day tomorrow are you not going to do anything? They literally like, what do you mean? All other things I have to do. If you are constantly going, sometimes you just get caught in the things. You forget the why, you forget the how. You don't realize where you're making mistakes. You don't realize how something could be done better because you're just running, right? You're just going. And so even something as small as doing a 3x3 meditation will completely change your day. It's going to lower your pressure, and I'll explain to you how that goes. It's going to lower your blood pressure. It's going to lower your stress. It's going to increase your focus, and it's going to increase your ability to perceive what is really happening, right? Because a lot of the time, you're good, and then like you mentioned earlier, Melinda, people come to you, right? The sky is falling, and it's easy for you to go from I'm good to, oh, the sky maybe is falling, what's going on? And then people just throw you off your zen, right? But if you can incorporate a 3x3 meditation into your day, you're going to find that center all the time. And so here's the way it works. Perfect. It just means to do 3 minutes of meditation or of silence 3 times a day, right? Everyone has 3 minutes. Everyone has 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. This could be when you pull up at the office or when you first sit at your desk, if you're still working from home, before you turn anything on, just sit there. Shut up, breathe, don't do anything. That's all. A lot of people think, I can't meditate because I can't sit still and the thoughts are always going in my head. I get it. That's not the point of meditation. Meditation isn't to have no thoughts. Meditation means that when you feel the thoughts coming in, you say, okay, that's a concern. I'm going to think about it later. Those 2-3 seconds of nothing, that's the power of meditation. Then another thought's going to come in. What time is it? Is it the 3 minutes yet? Okay. I see that I'm eager to get through this. Not 3 minutes. I'm going to wait. Then another thought's going to come in. Did I call that person back? These are my 3 minutes of meditation. I will check if I call them back later. And you go back to that Zen. If you can do that in your morning, in the middle of your day, and once in the evening before you wrap up, those 3 minutes, 3 times a day, you're going to notice a significant change in your self-control, a significant change in your focus, a significant change in your stressors, and a significant improvement in how you handle your stressors. Because something as simple as the way in which you breathe, which is part of your 3x3, you don't just want to sit there doing nothing. You want to sit there and breathe, inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, because that's the type of breathing that is going to lower your stress, that is going to help you to control your heart rate, help you to decrease the anxiety that you have, that we all have, right? Like we're constantly at 100 miles an hour, right? When we're idling at 100 miles an hour. So inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, inhaling deeply and exhaling slowly. In those 3 minutes, it's going to completely focus you, bring you to that one moment. Whenever you feel like you have the chicken littles running around, stop, inhale deeply and exhale slowly for 1 minute, just 1 minute. And you're going to immediately find that your fight or flight state that chicken little put you on is going to decrease, and you're going to come back to your control center. You're going to come back to saying, okay, is that urgent or is that important? Then you might even challenge yourself to say, is that my problem or is that their problem? Is this something that I'm going to tell them how to handle and they're going to go do it? Or is this something that my control freak is going to take on that I don't need to take on, that I'm giving this right back to you. Here are the steps to take, handle your business, come back when you're calm. You can do that. And now you're empowering that person to become better at handling problems. Because a lot of the time, people want to hand off the problem, not because they're lazy, but just because they feel you can do it better. They don't trust themselves enough. And they're like, hey, handle this for me. Oh my God, this happened. Can you take care of it? Right? Give it right back. Empower people.
I wish.
Say,
Just follow
here
my
is
lead.
the
I
way to
got
do
you,
this.
bro. I wish it was that way.
No.
The system will
No.
work.
Yeah, no, because then you're just adding things onto yourself. Empower your team and tell them, okay, I understand you're freaking out because of XYZ. Here are the solutions. Here is how you solve it. Here are the tools that I would use to do it. Go. If you have any questions, come back to me. Go and do it. That empowers you to stay in control of your center, to stay in control of your block, to stay in control of your time, to stay in control of the burden that you have chosen for yourself and your business. And it empowers your team member to learn to handle and to learn to control their time and to learn to control what they do, how they do it, and when they do it.
Yeah, we have a question or a comment in the chat that I'll read out. I find that I'm handling everything, whether for the other agent, the buyer, or the seller. I resent it, but feels that if I don't do it, it won't get done. What do you?
That's a good question. Yeah. Okay.
What do you think about that?
The first thing is, you say, I feel as if I don't do it, it won't get done. You feel that way, but is it real? Right? Because we can choose to feel a certain way, but is that real? Right? So ask yourself, if you really don't do it, right, will somebody else handle it, or can somebody else handle it, right? Because when it comes to the different parts of your business, if you have to do it yourself and you cannot carry the load of what you're doing, of all the parts of what needs to get done, Is it a delegation problem? Right? So is there any part of all these things that you're handling for the buyer and the seller or for the agent? Is it that you're taking it on because the buyer won't do it, but they're supposed to? Is it that you're taking it on because the seller won't do it, but they're supposed to? Or is it that you're taking it on because the agent won't do it, but they're supposed to? Or is it that you're the only person who is physically capable of doing it? Right?
Yeah.
So I see here, I try to delegate, I try to get the other parties to take responsibility. Okay, so then your feeling is not real. It will get done if the parties participate. Now, the key here is you need to either change your system and approach to actually engage the other parties and give them the responsibility. Because if the other parties know, and this a lot of times happens outside of business, a lot of the times this happens in families too. If the other party knows that you're going to do it, because you always do it, I'm just going to sit here and wait, because I know Melinda's going to handle it. She's going to yell, she's going to scream, she's going to get mad at me, but eventually she's going to do it. Yeah. So why am I going to do it? Right? So you've got to, so it is a feeling, it is not real, right? Don't mind my dog growling. She sees a cat outside. Hey, cut it out. It's not real. If the other parties get in, the way you feel that if it doesn't get done, if you don't do it, it won't get done. That's the real feeling. It's not real. You just told me right now, you're taking the responsibility because the other parties won't. A perfect example of this is you got a couple teenage kids in the house, right? Yourself and your husband, and everybody takes off their shoes and leaves them everywhere. And you spend the whole damn day saying, pick up your shoes. Don't leave them by the door. Why are the socks here? Why is this there? Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. They don't do it by 5 o'clock. There you go and you pick it up. You do that shit 3 times, they're never going to pick up their shoes. Because mom's going to yell, but she's going to do it anyways. Right? Mm-hmm. Now, you let those shoes pile and you put them on top of their bed and you say, your shoes are in my way. I told you not to put them in the middle of the living room. Now they're going to say, oh shit, mom's not picking up my shoes. And they're on my bed. That's gross and I don't want them there. They will never leave their shoes by the door again. Does that come with a certain level of compromise and sometimes sacrifice? Yes, you're going to put the dirty shoes on the bed's going to get dirty as hell, and someone's going to have to wash it. But the shoes will not be left by the door again. So what does that mean? Does that mean that maybe you have to give it right back to the seller, give it right back to the agent, give it right back to whoever you have to give it right back to and say, babe, my part's done. I'm swamped, even if it's not true. I'm swamped with other things. I need you to handle this. Let me know when you are ready. Maybe something's going to be late. Maybe a deal's going to get shaky, but you need to stand your ground and you need to say, this is yours. If you need help, I can guide you, but I'm not going to do it.
I think a lot has to do with, I'm going to bring it back to setting up expectations of what you're responsible to do and what the clients are responsible to do, right? When you set up your onboarding for the client, whether it's in your listing appointment or with your buyer consultation, explain to them what, of course, if you have questions or need a recommendation for your loan, I can assist you. But the reality is, this is your biggest project for this transaction to apply and get documents over immediately upon requested so that you keep your transaction on track. By saying it that way and giving them the responsibility from the get-go, they already know that it's theirs versus, the lender, sending an email and you say, did you see that email? Did you do it? You already started off from the beginning. When the lender emails you, you must be responding. I think that's one of the biggest things, right? So as an agent, you're guiding, you shouldn't be doing, right? Occasionally you'll have an older client that doesn't know how to e-sign or have like those technicalities. And then we pivot and adjust, but setting up the expectations up front of who has to do what by when is the key, right? So you have to apply within 5 days. You have to inspect within 7 days. You have to, and yada, yada, yada. And if you set that up, you will see people will be already on board with you from the get-go.
This is so important in every area of entrepreneurship.
Even with the kids, if you don't pick up your shoes by 5 o'clock, I'm putting them on your bed and your bed's going to get dirty. If you say it like that, you might never have
and I am not going to wash the sheets today because I'm busy. You're going to sleep on those dirty sheets because I don't do laundry till Saturday. So those shoes better be picked up. It's that simple. And you can do this lovingly, right?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to be like the really rude, really nasty agent or the really rude, really nasty mom. You can very kindly say, honey, I will not have those shoes in the door any longer. I'm going to put them on your bed. By 5 o'clock, you're going to have to stop and I'm not going to do laundry till Saturday. So you go sleep in a dirty ass bed. Okay. 5 o'clock, the shoes aren't picked up. You put the damn things on the bed.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
The other thing too for Ruth, what Melinda touched up on is the expectations. The listing agent and the buyer's agent, you're always working with different parties. So you don't know the idiosyncrasies of that person, how they work, how they operate, if they're new, if they're a veteran, or if they even know their stuff. So it's important to explain, hey, here's our process. This is what we do. And that's going to help alleviate some of that stress.
Absolutely.
We got guys in here waxing the floor, so if it's loud, I stress.
No worries. I got my dog over here growling at a cat outside. She sits on my desk while I work. She thinks she's a cat. I don't get it. All right. Definitely open to any more questions. If anyone wants to drop questions in the Facebook or wants to drop questions in here, if you guys have questions, because this is something that the learning to develop the ability to control your day, to control your reaction, and to control your ability to delegate and how you build and structure your day in life, right? Because these are skills that also apply to your personal life, not just to your business, right? Being able to block your personal time is just as important as being able to block what you're going to do for your business each day, right? Being able to block, if you're going to do showings on Saturday at this time, these are the times that the showings have to get done, because in the evening you want to spend time with your family or vice versa, right? That's equally as important. So these are skills that are going to make you not just a more empowered CEO or a more empowered entrepreneur. It's going to make you a more empowered CEO of your life as well, not just your business, right? Both are equally as important. Being able to find that zen and that control of your time in your personal space, as well as in your business, are equally as important, because we are composed of both, right? We cannot let our family life drown out our business, because that's what we pay for the family with, right? We can't let the business drown out the family, because that's why we're doing this anyway, right? Most of us are doing this to provide a better life for ourselves and for our loved ones. And so keeping that, I don't think it's balanced, but keeping the priorities straight at which time you're going to do what is really, really important on both ends. And that's one of the things that I find really fascinating, and why I love working with entrepreneurs. It's because when you're working with entrepreneurs, they already have a certain understanding of what it is to have the reins and what it is to have decisions. But oftentimes they execute that so much better in business than they do in their personal life. And you'd be surprised how many entrepreneurs I work with that run a business really well, and then, and they're in charge, but then they're like total people pleasers when they're on their personal space, and they're like, oh my God, my family's eating me alive. And I'm like, are your employees eating you alive? No, I've got that under control. It's the same thing. The same boundaries, the same communication, the same expectations, the same onboarding. You do the same thing with your family. You do the same thing with your friends. You create the same boundaries. You establish the same onboarding expectations with your friendships, with your family, with your kids, with everyone around you on your personal space as well, right? These are strategies that can be beautifully split into both the success of your personal life and the success of your business.
I love that. That's so true. And I want to remind everybody, just like I could be a lawyer, or I can be a business person, right? I could be an entrepreneur. Are you creating a job for yourself, or are you creating a business, right? A lot of agents are just in the grind of creating like a job for themselves versus creating the business. And what the difference is building the systems, building the team, and building the infrastructure as part of the growth process, right? So always keeping time, those empty blocks of time that you're talking about, you can make it empty. I like to have empty blocks, because there are those urgent things that come up. So it gives us the flexibility to put them in when we can and move things around. But there's also, in addition to that, making sure you put in time to work on the business, reflect, see how you could do things better. Because you are a business. Do you want to be a business, or you want this to be a hobby or just a job, right? So that's I love that idea of keeping the empty space there, because life never goes right just as we want it to go.
How boring would that be?
Yeah.
How boring would it be if everything worked out exactly the way you planned? I would be bored in 30 minutes.
I think I would take it for maybe a couple weeks and then I have a little change.
No, I love the
People would
challenge
never
of
grow.
having something.
Adversity brings opportunity. People would never grow. Adversity brings opportunity. Change is good. It's like you thrive off of that, or you fail miserably.
Yeah, but with
Absolutely.
failing forward, right, is part of it.
Yeah.
So I love that. Those are some good tips. So to recap your tips is to look, like the first one you said was to look within, right? Look within yourself and see really where is the stress coming from, and making sure that we identify why we have the feeling, right?
Absolutely. Look inward always first.
Okay. And then the second would be mindful of how you describe, what is happening or what is being requested. Is it an urgent matter or is it a very important matter, right? And differentiate the two to know.
It has to be clear.
To differentiate if you're going from, if you need to go off schedule to address, or be able to just put it in the block once you're ready to address it.
Is this something that can be solved in 1 hour? If me stopping what I'm doing for 1 hour or less is going to solve this problem, it is urgent and I will do it right now. If it cannot be solved in an hour, if it's going to be a whole lot of back and forth and this and that and the other thing, it can wait for the block. It is only very important. It is not urgent.
And then last but not least, do not do to-do lists, work with blocks, cluster your tasks, try to stay on task, don't interrupt unless it is an urgent task, right? So it's I like to recap because let it sink in.
Yeah, it's
everybody.
a lot. There is one more question that just came in. It says, in order to set my priorities straight when I receive a call or a text, should I answer immediately or can I be flexible by blocking what is urgent or what is very important? So I think that the best way to address this question is, what is the call for, right? So more or less, for example, I don't call. I hate phone calls, right? They get on my nerves. They just go on for too long. I text. So if I ever call you, trust that it is important and I need you on this phone because it's got to go down right now, right? You know who your people are like that. You know who the people are that call all the time, who meander, who this, who that. So if you're receiving a call or a text, this is the time to ask yourself two things. A, is what I'm doing right now urgent? Because if you're already handling something that is urgent, that needs to get done right now, you don't need another call, right? Because now that's going to delay your being able to address with something that's already urgent that you're on, that's got to get done. Got to get done in the next hour or else shit's going to hit the fan, right? So if you're already on something urgent, there is no call, there is nothing, no text, no email, nothing, because you're handling something that is urgent. Because if it's urgent, it means it can't wait, right? So you can't stop it to get on a call, right? If it's truly urgent. So if you're already on something urgent, you don't answer anything, right? But if you're just in a block, then you ask of the incoming call or of the incoming text, is this urgent? If this text is urgent and it needs to be handled in the next hour, then I'll address it right now. I'm going to pause this block and I'm going to address this text right now. If you get on a call, which is another reason why I don't like calls, a lot of the time you don't know what's coming in, right? Like you don't know what this person's calling you about. And then you get the, hey, how are you? I'm great. How are you? How are the kids? And how's the dog? And what's happening? Da, 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 da. You've lost 5 minutes, right? And then it's like, oh, I was just wondering if you had followed up with so-and-so. I was just wondering if so-and-so signed the paper. So now you're 5 minutes, and 5 minutes may not sound like a long time, but you get 5 calls like that, that's a half an hour, right? So you can choose to say, I'm going to call this person back. You can set your voicemail the way that I have, which says, thank you for calling. Text me if it's urgent, right? My voicemail actually says, don't leave me a voicemail because I don't check them. But you can choose, if people do want to leave voicemails and you check your voicemail, you can choose to say, hey, if it's urgent, text me. If not, I will call you back as soon as I can. And you're going to have a block in your day that it's your follow-up time, right? You're always going to wrap up your day by saying, all right, in this block, this was left unchecked, and this block, this was left undone, and this block, I had to follow up with this. This is my follow-up block before I shut it down for the day, right? My follow-up block says now I have to call back so-and-so that called me when I was in the middle of this, so-and-so that did that, and reply to this email, check if this person signed the paper. And then at your follow-up block, you're going to say how much of this is going to get restructured into tomorrow and which block is it going to go on, right? So you decide in that moment, to answer your question, Sadie, if what you're doing is urgent, there are no phone calls or texts, because this is urgent and supposedly it can't wait, right? If you're just in one of your blocks, you're going to ask about the incoming thing. Is this urgent? If it is urgent, then you're going to pause and address. If you're getting a text about something that says this has to be done in an hour or else, you pause, you address, right? And remember, you can also lovingly pick up the phone for that call and say, hey, what's going on? Is this urgent? No, can I call you back? Thanks. That's it. That's not rude. And you could do that to a client, you could do that with a colleague. It doesn't matter. Hey, babe, it's so good to hear from you. Is this urgent? If not, I'm going to call you back around 3 o'clock. Is this urgent? Yeah? Okay, tell me what's up. You establish that. And it may take, some people's definition of urgent may not be yours. So if somebody's like, yeah, it's urgent, I need to blah, 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 and it's not urgent, you're going to tell them, okay, I'm going to handle that at 3 o'clock because it doesn't need to happen in this hour. And I'm actually in the middle of something else right now, but I got you at 3 o'clock or whenever your follow-up time is. Once you create those systems and you create those boundaries, you're educating everyone around you as to the best way to work with you, which in turn is going to give you the best returns. It's going to give you a clear understanding. It's going to empower your team. It's going to make you better. It's going to make them better at addressing you, and it all just works out. Hope that was helpful, Sadie.
That was awesome. What I do is I have canned messages that prompts them to either be delegated or not be delegated. And if it's not urgent, then I'm not going to deal with it immediately. But the whole point is not to get on the phone and spend an hour and waste time on something that's not urgent. That's good stuff. It's great stuff, man. Great stuff.
Definitely. And then as we grow and delegate, you also have to train clients who do you need to go to for this request?
Yeah. It's funny. One of the agents just did that. They called me, they hung up, they called the sales rep. They're like, no, I already got the answer. Thanks. I'm like, done.
Yeah. It takes time, right? Because especially for you and I, that when we started, we had much smaller teams, or for me, like at one point I had no team, right? So dealing with all the requests for every single little thing. And then now, I have a team to help address all the requests. It definitely, for like the old school, referral partners, we had to kind of reset. Like when you need this, you're going to get it faster just calling the office, right? Than calling me. Mm-hmm. So remember that as well. If you start to, add a transaction coordinator or an assistant, explaining to the clients what the role is of everybody involved and who do you go to for what.
And also, guys, everyone that's watching, what I say too, and I think will help a lot of individuals that don't have teams, make sure before you get on the call, hey, I was on so-and-so call. I know it was urgent, but I wanted to call you back. Everything okay? That shows that you're really, caring about service. And then before you go on any Zoom meetings or calls, hey, Melinda, I have a hard stop at 1 o'clock. If this overlaps, I'm warning you right now. Once again, like Melinda says, setting expectations, so important in business, man.
Yes, that's a good tip too. Especially if you have that client that rambles or that likes to
talk.
Take up more time than normal. Right. But this was great. I think it's some really great pointers, great reminders. Even if you feel like you have control, like myself, there's days where I need to really just stop it and reflect on this, because sometimes it can, like the day can take over, right? And get us off track. But as the song says, if the train goes off the track, pick it up, and get it back on track, right? So use these tips, keep them in mind. We'll send it in our recap email. And Gigi, thank you so much for joining us. How can someone find? We have your Instagram that we added in the chat, but how can someone find you?
Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation. This is one of my favorite things. So you can find me on Instagram as Gigi Diaz Live. That's the same handle on Facebook, Twitter, Clubhouse, everywhere, Gigi Diaz Live. Or you can just stop into my website, gigidiaz.com, and check out a whole bunch of fun stuff that we got going on in there.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much for your time and sharing with our community. Have an amazing rest of your day. And thank you, everyone, whether you're live or catching this on the replay. We appreciate you. And we look forward to some really good shows we have coming up soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.